Welcome everybody to our Stargardt's 101 event tonight, sponsored by the Carroll Center for the Blind. One of our sponsors is Cedius, pharmaceutical company. So we're thankful for them for allowing us to host this event tonight for you. My name is Dina Rosenbaum. I am the Chief Program Officer at the Carroll Center for the Blind. And we have a couple of panelists who are going to present today. But first, let me introduce you to Jack Duffy. Jack is a client, past and current client of the Carroll Center, who's also an individual with Stargardt's, and really part of a driver of a person who's helped us put on these events and provide connections to others in the community with Stargardt's. Jack, do you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll give everybody the agenda.
Yeah, how's it going? My name's Jack Duffy Portentis. I was diagnosed with Stargardt's in the 3rd grade, so around when I was about 8. 26 now, living in Massachusetts. Went to WPI for mechanical engineering, and now I run my own company. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jack. And who do you have as your special guest with you tonight? Your mom.
Yeah. Barbara Duffy is my mother, who is, also gone through the process of diagnoses, but from a parental perspective.
Right. So we're happy to have Jack and Barbara here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Barbara is also the head of grants at the Carroll Center. So we love what she does. So thank you. And Jack and Barbara will be on for the whole time. So if you have questions that you want to ask of them later, they'll be around as well. So we have a couple of presenters tonight. We're going to start with Nathan Schrocki. Nathan is from the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. He is Director of Policy and Compliance at the Commission. And so he does actually very involved in registration and eligibility of individuals. I know we have a lot of people who are attending who are not necessarily from Massachusetts, but Nathan will talk about what the Mass Commission for the Blind does. Similar services are available in most of the United States, but they might be different from state to state. So just letting people know that. And when Nathan is done, we'll do a Q&A just for him specifically, so that if he needs to leave, he can. And then we'll go on to Bob and David, who are going to talk about low vision devices and applications and phone apps. So Nathan, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dina. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Nathan Schrocki. I work for the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. I've been with the agency for about 7 years now. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the registration process is with us, and some of the services that we provide here in Massachusetts. Like Dina had mentioned, many states across the country have very similar programs and will reflect a lot of the same services that we provide. I will leave my cell phone number and my email in the chat in case anybody's having any difficulty connecting to services in their states. I'll help you navigate that and do my best to connect you with folks that are have similar services out wherever you may be. So our mission here at MCB really is to provide individualized training, education, and empowerment to people who are legally blind, and advocate for inclusive policies across the Commonwealth with the goal of lifelong independence and full community participation. A lot of our goals around our cases are around independence, and various levels of independence. It could be as simple as checking your bills to navigating through the Boston subway system to get your job as an architect. It really is a wide span. So whatever independent means to you is what we're going to work to achieve with you. We provide social and vocational rehabilitation services to about 30,000 people across the Commonwealth. We aim to provide quality services that enhance the lives of our consumers by promoting independence and self-determination, like I mentioned in our mission statement. We achieve this by partnering with community agencies, healthcare providers, employers, and most importantly, our consumers and their families. A little bit of a quick history around our agency. We were established in 1906, and one of our first commissioners was Helen Keller. We're one of 15 agencies under the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. Our central office is located in Boston. We also have an office in Springfield. We serve consumers of all ages, birth to death. Legal blindness doesn't mean total blindness. Some people get that mixed up. The definition of legal blindness in Massachusetts, and this might be different from state to state, is 20/200 or less in the better corrected eye, or a peripheral field loss of less than 10 degrees, and that's regardless of visual acuity. People can also be eligible for services if they have low vision with a progressive eye condition that is expected to lead to legal blindness and having a vocational objective. So it needs to have those two things to be, and that's what we call potentially eligible folks. There's also, if you don't meet the acuity or the field loss, and specifically for certain diagnoses like CVI or like a traumatic brain injury or a stroke or something like that, if the conditions as a result of those diagnoses reflect the same as legal blindness, you could be registered with us as well. So that's sometimes outside that definition. So what services do we provide? We provide a number of different services. There's really two tracks. There's vocational rehabilitation. So that's obviously if there's a vocational goal at the end of the track, or social rehabilitation, which is more independent goals to stay in the home or to be successful in another category. We have children's services for children that are birth to 13. We have assistive technology unit. We have rehabilitation teaching. We have our deaf blind extended supports unit, which works with folks that have legal blindness and other major disabilities. We have orientation and mobility. All of these things are kind of wraparound services between that vocational and social rehabilitation tracks. Some of the benefits that you get working with MCB is you'll get a certificate of blindness, which is a legal document, proof of blindness, which you may need for a number of different things. We do tuition sponsorship to our VR eligible consumers. So we will pay for your college. We'll pay for your master's, your doctorate, if it's appropriate, and we'll pay for a number of different training opportunities. We really want you to be successful in those areas. There's a state and federal income deduction and exceptions. There's an auto excise tax, exemption if you do own an automobile. Now, obviously, you can't drive if you're legally blind in Massachusetts, but you can still own an automobile. Voting rights, we'll help out with those things. SSI, SSDI benefits, real estate tax abatements. If you own a home, we'll help with MBTA, blind access transit card, so you can navigate the subway systems in Boston. We'll work with other transportation authorities outside of Boston to assist you with transportation. We have the MCB ID card, which can be used the same as a license or a state ID. We have a number of different community resources that we partner with as well, including different clubs and development type agencies and groups that are support groups for folks that are experiencing different types of whether it's legal blindness or a certain type of diagnosis. There's a number of different community groups across the state that we have connected with that we can help you work with if you're interested in those things too. So it's a few of the things that we can help out with. When I talk about vocational rehabilitation, that's for anyone who has a vocational goal. You have to be over 14 years old. If you're in school, we start exploration services, introducing you to different vocational opportunities, different places that may be interest to you for employment. Again, like I said, we will pay for advanced schooling, training programs. On here, so like in the past year, I think we've served close to 1,400 people in the VR program. So it doesn't sound like a big number when you talk about everybody in the state, but we've been very successful with people being part of this program and obtaining or retaining competitive employment across the Commonwealth. And it's been a wide variety of employment opportunities that folks have gone into. You name it, we probably have somebody in that field doing that job somewhere in the state. So pretty exciting for us to see people kind of go through that process and be successful. We have a lot of different job collaboration people with folks, and to create these relationships to kind of introduce people to what is available out there with a vocational outcome. We also have our social rehabilitation track, which serves our 0 to 13-year-old, our children's programs, and a lot of these folks or anybody else of any age who doesn't have a vocational goal. So this is the majority of our consumers. Those goals are around usually some sort of rehabilitation or independence type of activity. The average client at MCB is close to 80 years old. So just to kind of give you an example, a lot of the folks that are coming in are because of age-related diagnoses to the agency. But obviously, like Stargardts and others, we have a lot of these different diagnoses that are hit a lot of our younger folks. And we've been paying particular attention to those diagnoses and understanding what those populations look like to help us prepare going forward for those that do have those vocational goals and the changing job markets and all those things that go along with it to help us prepare going forward. I had mentioned those are the two tracks, vocational rehabilitation and social rehabilitation. We have wraparound services that help with both of those. One being orientation and mobility. This service is how a person, does someone have a question or something? I thought I heard something. I apologize. This is, getting around either the house, the workplace, the neighborhood, to travel within wherever you want to go. We talk about a number of different things there. We have rehabilitation teaching. Now, this is more around in-home type things. So independence goals, whether it could be, preparing meals or organization or navigating within the home and doing different things, cleaning, financial management, medication, self-care, all those different things are part of our rehabilitation program. So depending on where you are, the case manager will work with you to decide what you need from that, what you don't need for that, and we'll provide those services as well. We also have assistive technology, which is simple and complex things like magnifying glasses to something that like glasses that might have a camera on it that will have an earbud that will help you navigate. And I'm sure David, I think, is probably going to talk about some technology stuff later. So screen reading software like JAWS or Zoom Text, iPads, those type of things. We provide assistance with all of that, getting introduced to it, how to use it, and what's appropriate for you and whatever your condition is at the time. Trying to see if I'm missing anything here. I did want to touch real quickly about registrations. We do about 2,000 registrations in Massachusetts a year currently, and it takes about once we get the registration at MCT, it takes about 3 days to get out to the region assigned to a caseworker, and they'll be calling you to set up an appointment. So it's a pretty quick turnaround once we get it. In Massachusetts, we're a little bit different because the law in Massachusetts is that if you are declared legally blind by a provider, that they have to register you with us. We'll then connect with you once you're registered with us, and we'll discuss services from there. Some people deny services. We obviously encourage everybody to take the services. They're absolutely free, and they will help at a lot of different levels, whether it's socially, whether it's something about just independence in the home, or if it's you got that vocational goal that we can assist with too. So in the interest of time, I'm going to end it there to open it up for some questions. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I will be sure to leave my contact information in the chat in case anybody needs assistance in connecting with services either here in Massachusetts or whatever state you may be from. I can assist with that as well.
Great, thank you, Nathan, so much. So you can put a question in the Q&A. Natalie is monitoring. You can also raise your hand if you have a question. I'm actually going to start with one question, Nathan. What is the process if you relocate from out of state into Massachusetts? Can you transfer if you were registered in another state, or what do you need to do to do that?
Yeah, we would need an updated I-report. So if you had an I-report that's recent, we could use that to register you, and we obviously need proof that you are living in Massachusetts to receive services in Massachusetts. But we try to make that as easy as possible. You know, sometimes we get I-reports that are a little bit older, but if it's a diagnosis that we know doesn't change and isn't going to affect your vision moving forward, we would just use that. But if it's, you know, if you have kind of a diagnosis that's a little bit dynamic, we may ask you to, we'll register you, but we may ask you for an updated I-report, and this will help us provide the best possible services to you.
Okay, so the doctor's report can be from out of state, or does it have to be from a in-state?
It can be from out of state, and I think
Okay.
that's was kind of a back and forth at some point. But what we won't take is I-reports from other countries. Just because we don't understand the laws and regulations around those I-reports always. So we have confidence in the 50 states here in the US, so we are able to accept those. Again, as long as they're somewhat recent.
Right. And I do want to emphasize the comment you made about it's often difficult for individuals who are working with their eye care provider to accept that diagnosis. And in Massachusetts, eye care providers are by state law required to register people, but we know the doctors don't always do it right away. You know, they may be still providing treatments, or they're not sure. The individual themselves don't want to be registered. So we certainly identify that there's a lot of benefits. So, I mean, the biggest negative is they will pull your name from the Department of Motor Vehicles in terms of your driver's license. But by the time you're legally blind, most people are not driving anyway. And then I know a lot of people often ask the question, they're nervous to get registered because then they fear it's not reversible, which is not true, correct? So if you become registered, you can get unregistered if your vision gets better, you get some treatment and you get your vision back, right?
Absolutely, we can unregister you, connect to the RMV, and you know, start that process if you are interested in a license, getting the license back. It takes a little bit of time. It might take a month or so from their point of view, but the day we know we have that updated I-report that you're no longer legally blind, we will take you off. It's about a 3-minute process, so it doesn't take very long. You know, and one of the benefits that I failed to mention in all of this, and I think it's just assumed sometimes, is you're going to get assigned a case manager. And that case manager is going to be an expert in all these different fields and help guide you and really work with you to understand what resources you need, what supports you need, what supports you don't need, all those different things. So we do have a number of excellent case managers, and just having that person to kind of help navigate this whole process for you, I think is probably the biggest benefit that we provide, is you always have this person. We provide services always. So as soon as you're diagnosed as legally blind to the point that you either move out of Massachusetts or you move to whatever realm is next after this one, you are going to have that person working with you or somebody from MCB working with you. And that is the biggest benefit because they're experts in the field. They're going to help you connect to any other state agency that you might need services from, and then anything beyond that. They're really going to work to make you successful in whatever goal that you decide for yourself. So I just wanted to mention that too, because I fail to mention it. I take it for granted because we have such wonderful workers and staff here at MCB, but that is probably the biggest resource we have is the folks that work for us.
Right. Natalie, do we have any questions from the Q&A?
We have one that is wondering if there is a listing of similar services by state.
I don't think there's a master list of state by state. That is a very interesting question. We're talking right now about how we better coordinate from state to state. We're working with several states right now to talk about that. I will bring that up, but if you want to connect with me and let me know what state you're from, I will get you a list of services that are there for your state.
Yeah, yeah, and you can also contact the Carroll Center. There is, I think, a website, Nathan, the National Council of State Agencies for the Blind has a listing, I think, directory, but we can share that link or find a contact for you. Are there any other questions?
One question for Barb and Jack. I'm having a tough time accepting my diagnosis and accepting services. Jack and Barb, how did you deal with that?
Okay, go for it, Jack.
Yeah. So I think it's a pretty valid feeling. I think a unique thing about this is you have to recognize that you are going through a loss. And you have to properly grieve, go through the 5 stages of grief is a very valid thing that you have to go through. I was diagnosed when I was 8. So, the weight of it trickled in as I matured. But the thing is the services that you can get really are game changing. With the technology that I've been able to get, the assistance I've been able to get, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't, at least say, okay, I recognize I need help and I recognize I need services. And it's certainly tough to kind of get to that point. And everybody has to go through their own personal journey. But if you can get to at least the recognition of I need help and these things will help me, and that's okay. These services are here, the technology is there to help you get that leg up that you've kind of lost a bit. And if you can get to that stage, reach out to other people with the diagnoses. It's kind of sucks. But reaching into the community and talking to other people, getting to know other people that have, your diagnoses, really does help, because then you can start to see that the problems that you have aren't, it's always when you're in a vacuum that you think that your problems are only your own. But once you start asking and saying, this is a problem I have, and others say, yeah, me too. Here's my solution to it, is really when you start to, it becomes easier to accept, I guess I would say.
Mhm.
So.
And, connecting with like the commission or the Carroll Center for the Blind, we can also connect you with support groups or counseling, or connect you with another person to talk to that's gone through, like a Jack or somebody else or a family member. And I think also it's important to engage with family and family support, but sometimes that family support, they overstep in terms of supporting. And so the individual themselves might not realize that how not independent they are because the family's doing so much. So I think it's also important for the family or your friend dynamic around you to kind of be honest with you about, how much you're not doing or how much they are doing for you, and have those conversations. But certainly, as Jack said, it might be one thing at a time. It doesn't have to be everything at once, just whatever you're comfortable with. And it's certainly a journey. I know there was one more question, I think, Natalie, about a college student going out of state.
Yes. Do college students moving out of Massachusetts for college stay with the Mass Commission, and do they receive services out of state?
It's a good question.
If they're leaving Massachusetts to attend college, so they're a Massachusetts resident and say they're going to New Mexico for college, they can remain with us as far as receiving services. Now, after they complete college, and if they decide to stay in New Mexico and start a vocational goal there, they would move to the New Mexico service whatever the agency is in New Mexico. So you can go out of the state. We'll still pay for, depending on how much the college is. We pay for the tuition that we pay for college is we'll pay the same tuition that it is for UMass Amherst here in Massachusetts. So we pay up to that amount per semester. So you can go to any college in the country. We'll still support that and, do what we need to do for that to be successful in that. But if you stay in that state after that goal is done, the schooling goal is done, your service and you become a resident of that state, you'll then start services with that state. But if you go to college and come back, you'd still stay probably with the same region and caseworker that you would have here in Massachusetts.
So I know there's a couple more questions, but I'm just gonna pick one that I know, Nathan, I need you to answer, and the others we can address towards the end.
I can stay to the end, Dina. So
Yeah, okay, great. Can you elaborate on home? We'll do this last one and then we'll move on to Bob. Can you elaborate on home ownership tax benefits for those who are blind?
yeah, it's so there's I think a $500 abatement if you do own a home in Massachusetts. The assessor's office will either accept a COB or MCB ID to give out that abatement in whatever town it is. And sometimes there's a disconnect because a town might not experience the process, so they might need to connect with me or somebody else from MCB to make sure that happens, and or just to get guidance on that. We do communicate with the assessor's office each year. We're working on maybe even eventually providing some sort of information exchange in the future where we don't have to provide a COB or ID. They'll just have that information. We're not there yet. It's kind of a few steps away from that, but it's right now it's just the COB, the ID, and to get that abatement. And if you do need to own the home, obviously.
Okay, great. All right, and we'll hopefully get to the others at the end because I want to watching the time. So thank you for your questions. So next is Bob McGilvery. Bob is the Director of Low Vision at the Carroll Center for the Blind, and he's going to give us an overview of low vision devices. So thank you, Nathan.
Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, and maybe even good morning, depending on where you are. I am Bob McGilvery. I'm a certified low vision therapist with an engineering background. And my role is to help people with reduced, distorted, restricted vision seek out resources to improve their visual function. So I work at the Carroll Center as a certified low vision therapist in a number of different programs. I also work as a consultant to the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind as a low vision engineering consultant at their assistive technology program. And what we want to talk about today is some of the low vision technology that might be available to people to help them be able to perform tasks that they may have difficulties in other ways. So when we're talking about low vision services, we're talking about people that still have some vision that might be useful to them. It may be a mild vision loss. It may be a severe vision loss. It may be a profound vision loss. But the common low vision approaches we use, the first one, and I think many of you are familiar with these approaches, is magnification. If we make an image look bigger, then maybe you're going to see it better. It's not going to be sharper, it's not going to be clearer, but it might be better. Another approach is controlling the light. Light is valuable for visual functioning, and it may be a problem with glare, or it may be a problem where you need more lighting. Another approach is enhancing contrast. If you could see what you want to see against its background, the contrast becomes valuable there. Another approach that is not as frequently talked about is that with vision loss, especially problems like Stargardt's, where you have a loss of vision in the center of your vision, you have to adapt to new ways of seeing things, new ways of dealing with this vision loss. So that is a problem with people, and Jack briefly talked about that maybe people reject the help, but you need to start learning to adapt to new ways of doing things. So what we do in our technology is many of the technologies we use are related to using those concepts I just mentioned. And probably the most popular types of approaches that we use are the use of something called video magnification, Some people call it digital magnification or electronic magnification. These are devices that can be specially designed to help people get magnification, enhance contrast, deal with brightness, and give you better viewing ability. So these devices, and since the 70s, they've been using some of the terminology called CCTVs, closed circuit television systems, though that's an outdated term. So these come in a number of different configurations. Probably the most popular, and maybe people have seen this, are the desktop CCTVs, video magnifiers, where you have a big screen in front of you like a computer screen. It's mounted above a tray or a platform that you put material on. You put the material on it, and then you have controls to enhance magnification, to change contrast, things like that. So these things become very valuable to people that want to do extended tasks like reading tasks. We have other configurations such as handheld versions now where they're made to be able to do spot reading, shopping, being able to read a menu, read your bills. We have portable systems that run on batteries that you can carry with you to different places. And they come in a wide variety of screen sizes from 3.5 inches all the way up to 12 inches. And we have some of these devices will have a camera that is either auxiliary or can rotate. So not only can you see the material below the tray for reading, you can aim the camera out at a distance and see things at a distance. This becomes kind of valuable for students that need to see something that's going on in a classroom. I had a student today that we were talking about that. Then there's some that are computer compatible cameras, where the camera will do the same thing displayed on your laptop computer. So you don't have to have two devices. So there's all these types of options available. And one of the more recent options is having OCR or text-to-speech built into these systems, where let's take a step back to talk about the desktop units. I put a sheet of paper underneath it, I press a button, it takes a picture, it processes it, and then it reads it out loud to me. The thing about all these devices is, and all low vision approaches as well, is there's limitations, and you have to adapt to the limitations. So one other area I was asked to talk about is the impact of what we now call low vision wearables. These are devices that you can actually wear on your face, like virtual reality goggles, that will give you those concepts I talked about: magnification, contrast enhancement, change the brightness, all those types of things, and even OCR. These devices get talked about as the cure-all, or the devices that will do everything for you, but they have severe limitations too. So you need to be careful about what you're looking at. So one of the things that is important is to be able to have resources where you can try these devices out, where you can get properly assessed by somebody who knows about these devices. And when I evaluate somebody, I want to know about their visual function, their visual limitations, their visual potential. I want to know how they respond to the concepts that I mentioned: magnification, contrast, lighting. And then I want to find out what their goals are. What do you want to do? There may be a different device for each type of task that you want to perform. You may need multiple devices. So what I'm doing is stressing, don't just buy something online. Find resources in your area if there are, and be properly assessed. We have a number of assessment programs at the Carroll Center. The Massachusetts Commission for the Blind has an AT team that can go to your job site or to your home, or have you come to them and assess these types of things. Now, as I've been talking about these special devices, I talked about the limitations. One of the limitations of the devices I've been talking about, because we didn't get into optical devices, is that they're costly. that can be financially difficult to be able to handle. So what do you do about that? Well, there are other approaches of using these concepts, and you probably all have something like that in your pocket right now, because smartphones can give you much of those things. They just don't give you it in a product that is designed for the visually impaired. So it has limitations. So David is now going to talk about some of the apps that you can use with your smartphone. So I like to think of the smartphone as a Swiss Army knife. You're going to have it with you. It's going to be in your pocket. It's the first thing you're going to go for. If you want magnification, you can turn on the camera, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. You want to change your contrast, you can do that. But like a Swiss Army knife, you have the screwdriver, and it's great to be able to deal with a loose screw, but you're not going to build a cabinet with it. And so maybe the other devices might help you. So learn the resources in your area that can help you with that.
Thank
Okay?
you so much, Bob. Yeah, thank you. And again, I just want to mention Ascidian Therapeutics is one of our sponsors today. So thank you to them for enabling us to put this on in future events as well. So David Titus is our vision rehab teacher at the Carroll Center for the Blind, and he's going to talk about phones and apps. So thanks, David. Thanks, Bob.
Hello, everybody. I'm David, as Dina mentioned. Just a quick bit of history on my background. I've had central vision loss progressing from age 20 up to now, and I'm in my mid-60s. And my career has been in biological research, marketing, product development, and I've worked with a lot of startup companies, especially in the vision field. And so I throughout the whole career, I've had to deal with the professional limitations of central vision loss. And one of the greatest of those is transportation. And I would say one of the other greatest limitations is what other people think of you. And so I've spent a lot of time hiding the fact that I had this disability. And I've managed to get 2 jobs where I did not divulge that until I had the job. It's a tough road, but it can be done. But I would really encourage people to seek services at the earliest available opportunity, because the transportation is such a barrier to employment. When I after 2 car accidents, I quit driving. And then a little while later, I realized that, I was failing the legal blindness threshold. And after that, suddenly I had access to transportation discounts, free service on the transit, and also a ride system in Boston that's quite remarkable. So I won't go into that more, but I would encourage everyone to don't be shy about seeking those types of services that keep you employed and keep you optimally employed at the best possible job. I certainly waited too long in my case. What I'm here to talk about today is apps, and really that boils down to smartphones. As Bob said, the smartphone is the Swiss Army knife. I have my regular Swiss Army knife in one pocket and the smartphone in the other, and I use them both. So what can you do with a smartphone? And I know everyone out there probably has figured out some or all of these, but let's go through some of the ideas. And I'll start with the uses of a smartphone for understanding the environment around you. And then I'll talk about some tricks for understanding the smartphone itself, seeing the screen better. So first, the simplest trick of all with a smartphone is to just take a picture. And the cameras in smartphones are terrific. What I do is I don't try to zoom in on the picture. I actually aim the camera and take it at the default setting, which is a pretty wide angle view. And then if you just take 2 fingers and pinch zoom, you'll discover that you can zoom in. Like if you take a picture of the entire restaurant menu at a lunch counter, it might be 20 feet wide. If you take the wide angle picture, you'll get the whole thing in one shot. Then you can go back to a table, pinch zoom, navigate around in the picture, and you'll find what you need in your own time and place. And if you then want to go back and get something else, you still have the photo because it's still in your photos collection. It hasn't gone away. So that's a great tool. I also use it in the kitchen if I'm reading a recipe card. I use it everywhere. And I find that the phone camera is actually better than some of the magnification apps. The iPhone has a magnifier app, which is quite a good app. It allows you to zoom in on things. You can snap a picture. You can save the picture. But when you close the app, the pictures go away. And when you zoom in as to the maximum, you might discover what I did, which is that the phone's camera actually did a better job than the magnifier app. So simple is good. Use the camera. And then another tool that I think is really everyone needs to try is an app called Seeing AI. That stands for Seeing Artificial Intelligence. It's developed by Microsoft. It's free, and it's available on the iPhone. And now it's available on Android if you have a relatively new Android model. If you don't have the new Android model and Seeing AI does not, you get the message that it won't work on your phone, there's a similar app you can use, and that's called Google Lookout, Lookout by Google. So that would be an alternative. But what does Seeing AI do? Basically, you use the phone's camera to read anything that's printed text. So printed text is no longer a barrier. For many of us, we hold it up close, we use a magnifier, all these things, but there are many times when the phone's camera can do the job faster or more efficiently or maybe more accurately. There are really two fundamental modes that I want to explain, and then you'll discover that there are a lot of other ways you can use the camera. But the two basic modes are called short text, which is basically instant text recognition. And then there's one called document mode. So in short text, the phone camera is always on and it's always talking. It's like a child who won't be quiet. But it's perfect if you're in the use case of walking down the hallway, trying to find your doctor's office, and it's number 312, and you're somewhere down the hallway. You can just hold your phone up to the room number, and it will speak it instantly. So you can use that in a public place when you're trying to get your bearings. Or if you're opening your mail, and 90% of it is junk mail, you can quickly read the return address and appropriately handle the mail using that app. But there's a second mode, or in Seeing AI, they call it a channel, for documents. And in this case, you want to put the document or piece of paper flat on the table. You raise your phone up, actually about, I'm holding my hands up to my forehead. You hold it up about forehead height, and the phone will give you instructions. It says, left edge not visible, move closer, move farther, hold steady, and then you hear a snap, and it takes a picture. And then there's a little jingle music that goes on for maybe 10 seconds. And then you can press a button and the entire page will be read to you. And that's a fantastic thing. If you get a long letter from Social Security or a bank or something like this, and you don't want to miss anything, but you really don't want to struggle and wear out your eyes reading the thing, you just let your phone read it to you while you're doing something else. It's a great thing for that tool. It's also quite good for reading short newspaper articles, things of that sort, where there's a lot of words, maybe the contrast isn't so good, and you just want to capture the information. So I encourage everyone to get the Seeing AI app. So those are really two things that you can use to explore the world around you. And the third thing I think that I would recommend everyone do, I know probably everyone has used the Hey Google voice assistant or Siri voice assistant. And sometimes we use that in a very limited way. We ask what's the sports score or the weather, but it's worth finding out everything that voice assistant can do. Siri can be used to send and receive text messages. You might say, Siri, read my text messages, and Siri will actually read them, ask you if you want to reply. You can say yes or no, and then you can say, read next message, or read my latest message from Bob McGillivray, and it will find the one that Bob sent a month ago and read that one. There's a lot you can do with Siri, and you can do a Google search for listings of how to use it most effectively. You can also set calendar events, which is a fantastic thing to do with the voice assistant. What Siri does not do so well, Siri will not close an app on your phone and it will not delete things. So it's good for starting things. It's good for communicating, email and text and so forth. Not so good for doing all the functions on your phone. For that, you would need a screen reader. And you may have heard of VoiceOver, which is the screen reader for the iPhone, or TalkBack, which is the screen reader for Android. These are software packages that are built in. They are free, and they will read everything on the screen to someone who has no eyesight whatsoever. And I advise caution for someone like me who has central vision loss, but otherwise works well with tools like magnification and contrast. These are great tools, but they do take a long learning curve. They are best learned at a center like the Carroll Center or one of your local vision training centers. And because they operate differently in a number of ways, there's a learning curve. So if you find that you need these in some situations, I would encourage you to learn to turn that mode on and then off again until you really feel comfortable. Otherwise, you can feel overwhelmed and maybe you get a sour experience. They're great tools when you need them, but get some training. Don't try to do it yourself. So at this point, I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about how you can access the information on the phone screen. We already talked about the screen readers, and that would be one way you can access the information on your screen. Many people, as their eyesight becomes more challenging, increase the font size. And that's a good thing to do up to a point. But I have dealt with many clients who increase the font size so much that the phone becomes less and less usable. Why is that? It's because when you have larger and larger letters, you might get to a point where only 1 or 2 words appear across the screen. And so as Bob would point out with a magnifier, if your magnifier is too strong, you lose perspective as to where you are. The same thing happens when you make the font too big on your phone. Instead, well, so what is too big? I think you can make the font about 2/3 or 3/4 of the maximum font size available on the phone. After that, it starts to really interfere with use of the phone in efficient manners. So what can you do instead? You can use the built-in magnifier tool to do spot reading, where you zoom in on something you really need to see, and then you zoom out again. On the iPhone, once you've turned it on in settings, you would use 3 fingers. You tap 2 times and then leave your fingers on the screen, and then you slide your fingers up the screen or down the screen to change the zoom level. On the Android, take 1 finger and you tap 3 times, and then you can use a 2-finger pinch zooming to do it. It's quite simple. You just have to turn this on in settings in the accessibility area of your settings. So that's zooming, but there's another thing you can do, and this is where we get into voice. We talked earlier about seeing AI reads to you, and for me, it was really, I'm a visual learner. I did not want to hear things. I wanted to see them. But I realized after some years of struggling and tired eyes and really inaccurate reading, I realized with some advice from a blind friend of mine that I had to learn by listening. And so now I use my eyes only for spot reading, and I do most of my longer text absorption by listening. And your phone has a setting that you can use to listen to what's on the screen. On the iPhone, it's called, what is it called? Speak Screen and something like that. So you go into accessibility and you look for the setting that talks about speaking. And you'll discover that you can turn on a couple of speech settings, and you can put a little control button somewhere on the screen of your phone. And when you tap that button, you have either a play button, touch that play button, and the entire screen is read to you, or you have something that resembles a hand, a pointing finger. And if you tap the pointing finger and then tap your finger on some part of the screen, that part of the screen will be read to you. So it's not hard to learn. It's not as complicated as the VoiceOver or the TalkBack screen reader. And it's a great tool for when you can see where you want something, but you can't see what it says. It's that where and the what. I can see where I want to read, but I can't see what it says. And I think I'll stop right there with those few tools. So that should get you started. And obviously, if you see a trained professional who is experienced in these things, you can learn a great deal more.
Great. Thank you, David, and thank you, Bob, for those great tidbits and information. I think we have some questions coming up, so maybe Natalie can shoot us some of those questions for any of you to answer.
Yeah, the first question is, which cell phone is better to use with these apps?
I think that one is in my camp. I use an iPhone. I also am the person who does the most teaching of the Android phone. And I have found that the iPhone is my preference, but not because the Android is not usable. The iPhone is my preference for two reasons. The first is that there is so much information available on the instruction in using it in vision impairment that it's just easier to get the information. And the second is that the Apple philosophy is one of having consistency across the whole product line, whereas the Android philosophy is a little different. On the Android phone, you might find that one phone doesn't run a certain app, but a newer one does run it. Or you might find that Samsung works a certain way and the Google Pixel works a different way, or that the controls are in different places. And a 5-year-old or 2-year-old Android phone has a different software system than a new one. And there's only a certain amount of updating that happens. With the iPhone, the software is the same. If it's an old phone, it's been updated every year, and it's really very consistent across apps, across models. And so for teachers, we like that because it's easier to teach. And I think for learners, it's easier to get consistent instructional information.
Do cell providers have discounts?
So I'm not sure. There was a program for people on limited income that the federal government in the United States had. There is a more accessible phone that maybe David can just mention called the blind shell phone, for people who have more difficulty with the smartphones and screens. The company that distributes that does also have a discounted phone service for people who meet the financial eligibility. So I don't know, David, if you just want to mention the blind shell phone.
Right. Yes. The federal government has a telecommunications access policy for people who are really receiving Social Security level compensation. So you're not getting you have to meet a fairly strict income standard that applies to people who get the blind shell phone. It also applies to other users, but the blind shell company has made it quite easy to access that government service. And the blind shell phone is a phone that's designed for non-visual or low vision users. It uses a different approach. It uses a menus like a up, down, left, right kind of a menu approach, rather than the smartphone, which has a screen that you would perform gestures, swipes, and touches and taps and things like that. So it's a little hard for me to say at this point because I have only worked with the blind shell for about 6 months. But I would say that it has a place, especially for people who find a smartphone overwhelming. That definitely would seem to be a niche where it has something.
Yeah, it's a great alternative for people. All right, next question.
One more
Go ahead, Bob.
resource. In Massachusetts, there is a program for people that have disabilities to get iPhones. And I'm not sure, it's probably not the newest iPhones. They might be the SEs, but there is a program and we've seen a number of people be able to get those. I don't remember the specifics of it, but we can look that up and put it somewhere.
I think Nathan might have that info.
Yeah, it's the EDP. You can get that through us. So if you're legally blind in Massachusetts, we can help you with that connection.
Great. Okay.
Can you ask Siri or Google to read your emails and write replies?
You know, I think you can, but I actually have not done it, so I don't want to say yes. You can certainly do that with the text message, and you can certainly use Siri to write an email.
And you also can, I can't speak for all smartphones, but with Apple, you can also do speech selection, which is you can highlight the text, and then where it says, you know, like copy, paste, cut, whatever it might be, when you set that up in settings, there'll be another section that says speak, and it can read that for you as well.
Great.
I think David or Jack could speak to this one, but how noticeable has your productivity at work been? I am a researcher and I am insecure that I may work so much slower than my peers as my vision worsens.
Yeah, that's a concern. I think that's a long conversation. um, you know, at some point you just have to be realistic about it. And when people have an issue like that, they also qualify for protections under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I would encourage you to go to a website called the JAN, Job Accessibility Network. And there you can learn how you, the employee, should approach the communication with your employer, and the employer can learn how they should approach communication with you about finding a reasonable accommodation for your situation. You have protections, and the JAN website can help you understand them.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, for me, what I'd say is, you know, I've found that I have been able to keep up. You know, in engineering, like even in 3D modeling, um, you know, I there's like tests that you take, certification tests, and I was able to pass those with time to spare. But you know, there is always a journey, and you know, as you lose your sight, as to, you know, finding the new way of accomplishing you know, a task in the timely manner. You know, it for some people, you know, it's just read the message or whatever it might be, but you know, you have to find your own strategy. And I mean, at this point, I've been doing speech to text for so long, I can read at 4x speed. So, you know, I mean, I can read, you know, documentation substantially quicker. And also now that ChatGPT exists, you know, you can pump in long form documentation where, you know, I wasn't previously able to do, say, skim reading and have to read all of it. Now things like ChatGPT can do, you know, summations of text, and then you can ask questions about it, and you can still get the gleaming information that, say, somebody who can just do a skim read can.
All right. Bob, do you want to add anything?
I do a lot of work at job sites, going to people's where they work, and most of the people I'm working with have had vision change. So now they are looking at how can they perform their jobs. And there is the concern of productivity. And I have to look at what is the expected productivity. I look at other people doing the same job, seeing how they can work. And I'm not saying in all cases, but some cases with this newer technology that we have, a person can do some of the tasks faster than other people can do it because they learn new ways of doing it, not depending on their vision. But in many cases, productivity might be slowed down, and the alternative to that is job task sharing, or redefining what you need to do and have done.
Great. Okay, any other questions, Natalie?
There's one last question. Could you quickly review, I think this is for David, the app on the iPhone that you use 3 fingers, then tap twice?
Oh, so
yes.
voiceover.
Oh, I think that's just the magnification gesture.
Okay.
So when you want to zoom in on the Apple screen to see some part of it more easily, you have to turn the you go into accessibility, and under accessibility, you find the magnify settings, and you'll find that you can turn this on. And then the gesture is simply to take 3 fingers and simultaneously tap on the screen and tap a second time. The speed is like tap, tap. And the second tap, you leave your fingers on the screen. And now your fingers, you move them up the screen to make the image larger and down the screen to make it smaller. Once you've made it larger, you can just take 2 fingers and shove the image left or right, up or down until you have the part in view that you need. And then you can make the same gesture to reverse that process.
So that's an
you
Apple
can see it-
accessibility,
Yeah.
Apple's accessibility program called Zoom.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone who wants to learn about these things to just do a YouTube search. There are so many YouTube videos out there that show how to do various things like this. And an especially good source is the Hadley Helps, HADLEY-HELPS.org. It's a Hadley Institute in Chicago. They have several short videos that help you with Apple and Android phone gestures, and they're worth bookmarking. So again, that's HADLEY-HELPS.org.
Great, thank you. Are we done, Natalie, or do we have time for one more, maybe?
One more question just came in. Is Google Lookout better?
Google Lookout is fine for the 2 things that I mentioned, which are far and away the most useful tasks. There are some newer things that Seeing AI does. It'll tell you a little bit about the world around you. That's called Seen, and it will read currency. Google Lookout just doesn't have quite as many different functions, but it's fine. For the basic functions, it's fine.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to David, Bob, Nathan, Jack, Barbara, Natalie for being here tonight. This was recorded. We will share the recording with those of you who attended and registered. We are planning on doing another evening event like this in August. And so we will be sending out a survey for you to give us feedback about what you would like to see in the next session. And then we're also hoping to do an in-person training information center at the Carroll Center in Newton, Massachusetts in the fall sometime. I know Nathan has said he's happy to connect people. I'm also happy to connect people. If you reach out to the Carroll Center at info@carroll, CARROLL.org, connect you with a local agency. If you're out of state, there are a lot of agencies like the Carroll Center that around the United States that do provide training for people on using devices, provide assessments, etc. And we're really encouraging people to use the resources, the agencies, the state agencies, private agencies as resources and not struggle on your own, but use us to get you information, get you training, connect you with individuals who can assist you or mentor you, etc. Through the process. So we don't want you to do it alone. If there's lots of people who can help you along the way. And again, thank you to Ascidian Therapeutics for sponsoring tonight's event. So please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you for coming tonight. So we hope to see you again in the future. Thank you.